All right, now it's time for some more of the story, and I'm doing a several-part series on the impossible mathematics of atheistic materialism and evolution, and we're going to talk about an RNA replicator. Been having fun with the atheists, that's for sure, and I call this the dance of the jester. Is RNA really your daddy? I think it's funny. I'm sorry, it's funny. Okay, so here's a quote, and I want you to keep it in mind, and I'll bring it up later when I get to it. But autocatalytic, they love that word, autocatalytic. That's their miracle child. Autocatalytic RNA will produce more RNA like itself, either singly or as part of a system of such RNA. Will it produce other things? Now, keep that in mind because this is where I'm debating them. Possibly, but none of that matters. As those other parts will not be things that replicate. And so when they break down, they just become spare parts for other chemistry. And that's total nonsense. And I'm going to show you that. So here's Eugene Koonin. This is a quote I've used. And he's an origin of life scientist anyway. And he says that so far, they cannot account for not only an RNA replicase. See, we're stuck on RNA replication, but you also need translation. Well, what does that mean? Well, it's not enough just to get an RNA molecule. You got to be able to translate the molecule into the next cell. And there is no known mechanism, nothing that they've talked about, go read their comments, that can explain where the information comes from for the next replication. All right. So, but the very fact that we have an information-bearing molecule that can form entirely naturally, even forming change naturally, that can act as genetic material and can catalyze its own replication means that we're really down to just asking the specific path that it took instead. Oh, it sounds so rosy. Oh, we're so close. We're so close. Really? Nonsense. And I'm going to talk about something that they use that everybody in origin of life science knows about. It's called the foremost reaction. But first and foremost, I want you to understand the chemistry involved I say again, must. It has to be prebiotically relevant for early Earth. Anything else is total nonsense, period. And here's the problem. Now we're talking about chemical reactions, and you're going from nothing to RNA first, and then you got to go from RNA to biological life in the form of a cell. And there are trillions and trillions of chemical steps from nothing to RNA, and then from RNA to biological life. And even if it isn't trillions, you tell me what it is. Give me your number, what it is, to go from nothing, absolutely nothing, to RNA, and then to go from RNA all the way up to a cell. So, in essence, what we're trying to do now is we're really trying to bootstrap an RNA molecule and claim it can now be the ancestor molecule to the cell. I'm really flabbergasted that they're sticking to this story, but they are. But RNA by itself, they claim, came about by some Darwinian means, even at the type of natural selection and pseudo-evolution nonsense. Baloney. It's all baloney. Pre-RNA, and in fact pre-cell, from nothing to the cell. Before you get to the cell, from nothing to the cell, all you have is their little pond story and wet and dry cycles, and you have lots of time, millions and millions of years of time, and then you have trillions and trillions of chemically active bits and pieces putting themselves together over time, becoming more and more cell-like before you get to a cell. No, you're not. No, you're not. It's called random. They hate it when I use that term, but that's exactly what it is. You have just chemicals, just molecules in a pond. And again, when I say this, they always change it. I'm talking about chemically active elements reacting with other chemically active elements. I'm not saying that any little molecule can come along and do this and that, but they always change my words and they make it sound like that's what I'm saying. Yet it was claimed that these molecules were building different parts, they're using baselines, they're selecting just the right random RNA replications to go forward. hogwash. That's total hogwash. It's a fanciful story, but it's just a story. Because right now, what we're talking about is nothing but chemical evolution. And chemicals don't have feelings. Chemicals don't know they need each other. Chemicals don't care. Chemicals don't know what RNA is. RNA doesn't know what RNA is. Mother Nature, deadhead Mother Nature, doesn't know what RNA is. It's all nonsense. And I'm going to show you also, and that's the thesis of this particular video, that each chemical step, each chemical reaction that they're talking about of this, and they keep using this term, advanced chemistry, as if that's going to save them. But if it's advanced chemistry because they're macromolecules, and it takes advanced chemistry to build these macromolecules, they think that somehow saves them. And it's just the opposite. Once again, it's 180 degrees the other way. It absolutely kills abiogenesis each step of the way. So we're going to begin and watch this short video clip.
The molecules involved in life, they have no intelligence, they have no foresight, they have no way of knowing what they need to do next in order to get themselves assembled into organic chemistry.
Amino acids, nucleotides, lipids, by themselves, they do not represent life. They're inert. They're not reproducing, they're not storing information. In a sense, they're dumb. They didn't wake up one morning and say, hey, let's all get together and build a cell that can replicate itself. Didn't happen. Chemistry by itself is indifferent to whether anything is alive or dead.
Those cells are smart. If this were my gene library, it would contain everything my body knows how to do on its own without being taught. The ancient information is written in exhaustive, careful, redundant detail.
Of course, the cell is more than just the chemicals that comprise it, because a cell that's just died is still the chemicals that are there. So there's something that energizes it, that coordinates it, and we don't know how to get that, but that's the goal.
What did we get to see there? I showed you two different things. First of all, I just showed you what molecules do. Molecules are brain dead. Molecules do not know that they need each other. Molecules don't care. They will react with the first chemical reaction that they can react with. I'm not saying they can work with any little molecule that floats by. That's not what I'm saying. But you'll change it, you'll deny it, and you'll write it out as if I did. I didn't. Anyway, then let's contrast that with what used to be the actual gatepost, the actual goal that we were heading towards was the little cell. And Carl Sagan, those cells are smart, okay? And in a longer video clip, he goes into that library that you can see him standing in, and he pulls out one of the books, and he starts reading all the little chemical reactions, and step by step, as he says, in exhaustive detail, the ancient language. Again, the ancient language he's talking about is billions of years older than any human tongue. Well, who wrote it? Who wrote that billions of years older step-by-step instructions on everything we know, that everything you can do that you didn't have to be taught? Sure. And then the other one, and I'm not going to talk about it too much, but the last presenter was talking about if you have a cell and a cell just dies, and they don't know what that is. They don't know what energizes a cell. It is qualitatively different after it dies, and yet the cell still comprises all the chemicals that used to be a cell. Thank you, Jesus. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So, but each little step in this advanced chemistry, just to get to RNA, and that's where we're headed first. In this little video, I'm going to do an A and a B to the replicator because I have a lot of material. So I'm going to start out with the quote precursor molecules first. But in each step in the advanced chemistry to just get to RNA, it's a fairy tale for grown-ups. Each chemical step would constitute a miracle of its own, and I'm going to show you that. So in this particular video that you're going to see in a minute, we're with, again, Origin of Life scientist Lee Cronin, and he's going to talk about a very famous reaction, the foremost reaction. And it's touted by evolutionists all the time. Why? Oh, it's autocatalytic. It's autocatalytic. Can you say it with me? It's autocatalytic. I mean, autocatalytic. It's the miracle child of the new abiogenesis. Oh my God, we've got an autocatalytic reaction. And it knows how to just push everything aside. It makes everything perfect. It's just, oh, it's a miracle. Yeah, right. So do you remember this quote from the beginning? Auto-catalytic RNA will produce more RNA like itself, either singly or as a part of a system of such RNA. Will it produce other things? Oh, it's possible, but none of that matters, as those parts will not be things that replicate. And so, when they break down, they just become spare parts. Total nonsense. So, let's watch another video with Lee Cronin.
In with Lee again for how this type of chemistry can yield complex sugar-like molecules and RNA precursors.
So in this paper, we showed the foremost reaction, which is a really simple way of making sugars or a big mess. Normally, when you do the reaction, produces billions of products, literally within a few seconds or hours. When we added minerals, we were able to steer the formation. So not quite so many got made and other interesting things happened. And you could imagine a type of catalysis was occurring. It's still a bit too complex for us to interrogate, but we showed a number of important things. Number one, there was catalysis. Number two, we were making some interesting biological-like molecules that weren't present when the minerals weren't there. And number three, we were steering the chemistry, so it wasn't just getting more and more and more messy. We were able to make it less messy.
I'm an inorganic chemist, so I don't know any organic chemistry.
Let me take you through organic chemistry. You say if you run it under standard conditions, you get billions of products within a few seconds or hours. Precisely what I'm saying. You get a mess. He himself says it. You remove the supernatant because all of these things were polymerizing. It's right there in the experimental methods. Just read it. Lee Cronin somehow says you get less mess, less compounds, but he's removing the supernatant. Let me teach you this organic chemistry. I know you don't know anything about organic chemistry, so let me teach you about this. Could that mixture ever be used synthetically for anything? I ask you, Lee. Could that mixture, even after you've made it less messy because you let the ones that were really big and fall out of solution go away, could you ever use that for anything? No, you couldn't. And it's so messy. I thought you were purifying this out some mysterious way. But still, you couldn't even assess what the isomers were because they were all overlapping. I'm telling you, each one of those dots on your little panel was multiple compounds. So if you think you're getting billions, you're probably getting trillions of compounds because you have all the other isomers under. Welcome to my world of organic chemistry. This is the nonsense that Origin of Life researchers put forward that they want us to believe they've really got this thing solved.
All right, so from the foremost reaction, what do you get? You get billions and billions of products. I'm going to try to sound like Carl Sagan. Billions of years ago, and billions of reactions in this autocatalytic reaction. True, by the way, foremost reaction. Well, you get isomers, you get enantiomers, you get diastereomers, you get other polymers, you get complex molecules. Oh, wait a minute. Isomers and enantiomers are right and left hand copies. And, biological life, they kind of want the same, biological molecules, the polymers that make us up are like right or left-handed. And yet these reactions, even the foremost reaction, is creating right and left-handed, and those particular molecules, the isomers, the enantiomers, and the diastereomers, are chemically active, like I said, and they're going to compete with the one little tiny reaction that you need, and they're more likely to gum up abiogenesis than to help it, and you have hundreds, if not thousands or millions more of those, billions even. And guess what? Abiogenesis is dead from the first reaction called the foremost reaction that they keep touting. Wow. With billions of compounds, with billions of competing chemical reactions compared to the one chemical reaction you need each step of the way chemically. From Lee Cronin in the video, we have the awesome, precise, and technical term from Lee Cronin called less messy when he adds some minerals. Well, excuse me, but what does less messy really mean? It's the same thing in my last video with Origin of Life scientist Gerald Joyce. It's terms like optimized molecule. Well, that's a designer molecule, first of all. And then to some extent can copy. Well, what does some extent mean? Come on, guys. Yet the actual experimentals from their own papers paints a much different story, like Lee Cronin here. Okay, he says he's steering the chemistry. What does that mean? Well, more brains are getting in the way. You're adding certain amount of chemicals and et cetera, et cetera. And then he says, you can imagine a type of catalysis. I love it when they use these words. You can imagine a type of catalysis is occurring. Really? I can imagine a lot of things. I can imagine that there's a pink elephant with gray tennis shoes on in my backyard. So what? It's still, and here's a better one. It's still a bit, whatever a bit means, too complex for us to interrogate, which is code for what? Even the Origin of Life scientist and his miracle child foremost reaction of auto-catalysis creates too much chemical crap. How do you like my specific chemical term? So how's the abiogenesis story going for you? And then, of course, when you look at the actual details in the paper, like you saw, the truth is much less astounding than reported in the abstract and the title. The Origin of Life scientist, of course, he's going to put on a happy face. I don't blame him if he wants to get some funding for his work, but the reality, and in front of your face, is very different, even for the miracle child foremost reaction and the supposed precursors to your beloved RNA molecule. It's nonsense. And last but not least, I want to thank Dr. James Tour and even Richard Dawkins in this video. Now, why? Because when I use Dr. James Tour, they call him a hack. No, he's not. He's a very sincere Christian man trying to do the best he can. He's telling it like it is, and he has the acumen to read those papers, and that's the only thing he's doing is reading the evidence in the papers themselves. He's not reading just the title or just the abstract like Professor Dave. He can actually read the chemistry. And you guys have a problem with that. Well, too bad. And Richard Dawkins, he talked about directed panspermia. Ben Stein just asked him a question, and I'll leave the video below. And he just asked a question, and he answered it. So what? Get over it. Anyway, but here's the problem. So anybody who goes against the dogma, and yes, the religion of materialism is branded, and you guys called Dr. James Tour a hack, etc., etc. Oh, and you shouldn't use his videos. You shouldn't bring it up. Bull. You guys are something else. You guys are the new Inquisition. And anybody that doesn't toe your stupid little line is a heretic. You guys ought to be ashamed of yourselves, not me. You guys are the ones that are holding down science and not allowing any other perspective but one. That is not science. That is materialistic, atheistic persecution of people that don't see things your way. Too bad. I'm going to keep using them. And thank you, Dr. Tour, again. Enough said. Have a blessed day. Bye.